Welcome. Thank you all for joining me today. We've got a big group, a lot of folks who are registered today, and I'm really excited to see a lot of new names, even more excited to see a lot of folks whose names I recognize. Thanks for being here. I scanned that list mainly because I like to be able to focus the point of view. I anticipated for this particular workshop that we'd have a lot of signups from people who were new supervisors, new managers, experiencing this difficult situation of moving from buddy to boss. But instead, over 90% of the job titles listed for registrations here are from senior leaders in HR and in all different kinds of functions. So I'm guessing either one of two things is going on here. Maybe you'll give me a little message in the chat if you're listening live to help me sort it out. It either appears to me that this is a problem across entire organizations, and so HR folks are here to help out multiple individuals, or we've got some folks who are in next level management roles, you're managing managers, and this has been a situation that you've experienced now probably once or twice in your career, and you're grappling with it not just from going frontline contributor to supervisor, but with others on your team who are in that situation, and maybe even yourself as a manager. So anyways, if you've got any thoughts for me on that, I'm still kind of looking to try to tailor the point of view. But I am going to also speak for those who are in that situation. This is you. You have recently been promoted, and you worked alongside your peers who are now your direct reports. I'll be speaking directly to you as well because I have a lot of empathy for you in that situation. I've been there. It's been a long time ago, but I've been there. And in every job since then, it's never, ever been as challenging as it was then to make that shift. Okay, well, those of you who are new to Bright Talk, let me tell you just a couple of things. First of all, you will notice right down below the slide that's appearing that there is an attachments tab. And I hope that you'll use that. In that attachments tab, you'll find things like the PDF of slides from this presentation. You'll find some referrals to other content that's complementary, including some that's over on People First Leadership Academy, which is where we do the more interactive and immersion types of experiences. There's a little bit of on-demand content over there too, but primarily that's for sessions where you want to come in and tackle things that you're working on very specifically because they're so interactive. Okay, I'm getting some of the thoughts here. Thank you for those who are responding there in the question box. That helps me to know the point of view that you're coming in from, and I appreciate as many of those as I can get from the live viewers. And then for all of those who are listening later on demand, hopefully we'll cover all the bases in some fashion. So in that attachments tab, hopefully you also see a link about how to get connected with me. On LinkedIn, if not someplace else, you also see the URL now on screen of peoplefirstpotential.com. That's the Leadership Academy. People First PS, which is my primary website. We've been in business for about 18 years. And my email address, take that down, especially if you're listening on demand and you have any follow-up questions after we get done with this presentation. I would welcome your questions. I would welcome your thoughts about how to help folks in your own organization to navigate through this difficult situation. Probably the only thing you really need to know about me today is I've been there, I've done that, I've helped lots of other managers and organizations who are dealing with that. And last week, I released a new book that tackles some of the very same kinds of things that we're going to be talking about today. I'll give you a QR code at the end of the presentation in case you're interested in taking a look at the new book. First and foremost, for anybody who's dealing with this situation, I really want you to know that you're not alone. You're not alone. 90%, that's a big number, of mid-level executives say that at least once in their career, they've been promoted to lead, manage their peers. And, sadly, about 60% of new managers fail. And there's a pretty good body of research emerging from the CEB and others who says that the failure rate is higher when you're in that situation of having to manage people that used to be your peers. So these are realities. And I know, misery loves company, but these are some scary statistics too. So being in good company, it doesn't make it any easier. I just want you to know that you're not alone and others have figured it out and you can too. The truth is that the dynamics change completely, right? People start to view you differently because you now wear a certain title. And going from buddy to boss combines the challenges of any promotion with the additional challenge of now having people recalibrating their relationship with you. True story, not the one where I first became a boss when I used to be a buddy, but the second time it happened, I was promoted into a corporate role. And I had worked across our 41 markets, even while I was still at my primary market. Before I went to corporate, I had worked with people who had functions similar to mine in all of those other markets. We exchanged ideas, we supported one another. Sometimes we had our, gripe sessions together. But then I went to corporate and I just expected I would still be just Deb and that people would appreciate, as they always had, my ideas and input. But now I wore the corporate role. I wasn't just Deb anymore. I was Deb from corporate. And even though I'd known some of these folks for years, been to their houses, had commiserating sessions, everything changed. And that's when I first, even though I'd had the other experience, this is when I first fully, truly, really understood that people attach meaning and significance to your role, no matter how long or how closely they've known you. So we've got to be able to understand that, to be able to take into account a few things. Now, for those of you who are promoting others to fill supervisory roles, or perhaps you mentor others, I'm telling you this piece because I would certainly want you to have empathy. You're going to promote some people or coach some people who are in this situation, and making sure that you're able to equip them is half the battle. Even before that, though, is making sure that you are able to empathize with them because they are going to suffer some loss. It's a loss to have your friendships change. Even if they can restore those after all the relationships get recalibrated, for this season, it's going to feel like loss. Help folks to remember that some things have not changed. This is going to help them to make their transition more successfully. Before they were the boss, they got promoted for a reason. And one of those reasons might be that they were showing some tendencies of leadership, even when they were peers with others. So they were leaders, they were also team members, and those strengths are what you want them to carry forward. You don't want that to be lost in all of the confusion of the promotion. Maybe you can help them. Certainly any of us who get promoted into these new roles, we can do it for ourselves to some extent. But if others are helping and reinforcing, Deb's got a formal title now, but just like she's always been a team member, she's still a team member, she's still a leader. Just all those things that you liked about her before are still going to be there. Right? You can begin to put some of those assurances out there for everybody. For those who become managers for the first time, sometimes I see this little thing happen, and this one is very familiar to me because I grew up in a family where both of my parents were Marine Corps drill sergeants. I had a full appreciation for authority and command and control. And so I thought the right thing to do when I became the boss was to be a manager with authority, with rules and regulations. And it was ugly. It was bad because I changed too much. I overplayed the authority and the manager card instead of trying to retain the camaraderie that we'd had. And yes, I did have that authority. That's a fact. But I didn't have to use it like a blunt end object to try to compel people to do things. They would have done them just because they were the right things to do. Me being in that role didn't mean I had to use those tools, certainly not so swiftly and so often. There were other things I could have been doing instead. So people who ascend to this role, they have to know what hasn't changed. And they also need to have a really good, realistic understanding of what has changed. In fact, I strongly recommend for those of you who are going to be considering promotions or mentoring of people who might ascend into managerial levels, I think it's really important on the front end that they know it's your expectation and it's their obligation. If they take the role of supervisor, it's going to be their job, no exceptions, to sometimes have difficult conversations and to hold people accountable to expectations that have been set. And that means to give them feedback in a timely manner. It means they have to be willing to accept those obligations and not bank on the fact that, hey, we're all friends and everybody's going to do it because we're friends, because that's what will not happen. Now, I often coach people, if it's not happening, I often coach them by saying something like, okay, these are your friends. Have you had a conversation with them that says something like, guys, I need my friends to back me up here. I'm failing because given a few too many liberties. As my friends, I need you to do your part too. All too often, the emphasis is on, hey, the manager was our friend. The manager needs to keep being our friend. The manager needs to protect us. And this goes downhill, slippery slope, really fast. So please flag for people who are going to become managers that things are changing and they need to be able to migrate from friend to the title that you're giving them and all that that title entails. Sometimes people aren't willing. It's better for them to have a frank conversation about this beforehand, to really be able to give it some thought, consider what you're going to be expecting before they're in the awkward position of trying to live in both worlds and friendships, because those are the people that they're closest with every day, might override some of the things that you're needing or that the organization is needing from them. And you'll hang on to them as long as you can. They won't feel good. The friendships are going to probably fracture anyway. When the time comes, they feel betrayed by the people who are putting them in this bad situation. And the time comes when they have to step into management, and it's, those are going to be much worse losses to the friendship and to the individual. Put it all out front. Let them know. Now, it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. You're here to help them, support them, empathize with them, remind them that they have tools other than title and authority, like their natural leadership, the work that they've done and what they've already proven to the people who they're being promoted over, and the opportunities they're going to have to continue getting support from you as they ease into this transition. You're not just going to give them the good news and the bad news and abandon them all alone on some island. There's a whole lot more you can do. One of the things that you can do, I'm talking now especially to the HR people, when job announcements, promotions are going out across the organization on the Slack channel or emails, however you do it, maybe still it's a formal memo, be sure you say something about why this person was selected. This is really important, especially if there were two people from the same peer group or more who were vying for the same job. We selected Deb for this role because in her 12 years with the organization, she has demonstrated X and Y and Z, and we believe that she's ready to take on a leadership role. Show your backing, give the reason, make it clear that it wasn't a flip of the coin and Deb got lucky. Okay? For the people who go into these roles, you might have great ideas. In fact, those great ideas and your enthusiasm, that might be what earned you the promotion. But go ahead and start small. Let the relationship recalibration come into play before you start making a bunch of wholesale changes all at once. Keep talking to people. Remind them, hey, you know that idea that we were always talking about? Well, now let's see if we can do something about it. What do you think now? And you'll be enlisting them as you have those kinds of conversations. Don't take that authority and that title and act like you've had a personality transplant. You are still you, and people want you to act like you. Let them know what you value about them. Walk the floor, have interactions with people. Go ahead and go to lunch with folks. And as you're doing all of that, make sure that you're also setting the boundaries. Now that I'm in the managerial role and we're here at lunch, this conversation, it's not one I really ought to participate in. After hours, until we get things all settled out in the relationship that's recalibrating, let's make sure we feel our way through the workplace relationship. And I know that it's awkward, but tell people it's awkward for you. It's awkward for me. If you have an issue, let's just keep talking about it. Let's keep talking about it. We have a great foundation here. Take it slow would be the main idea here. Now, to avoid confusion, and there will be confusion, but to control that as best as you can, be very, very clear about roles and responsibilities, including yours. And that sounds like, okay, my friend, this is your role, this is your responsibility, and until we fill my old job, I need you to step up and do X and Y and Z. Because I need to be over here doing A and B and C. That's my new role. I'm responsible for those things. Set those boundaries, set that clarity, be gentle, but be firm. And don't let others determine what the relationship looks like. You decide. Think about it and put it out there in a way that's clear and in a way that holds folks accountable, including yourself. You don't have to micromanage. Don't go from being everyone's best friend to their micromanager, but instead, give them opportunities to rise to your expectations that you're setting. Let them know that you see the best in them because you've known them well, because you know what they're good at, and praise those things and use that encouragement. And certainly, yes, you also know what their gaps are, and so do they. So have some candid conversations about those too. This isn't all unicorns and rainbows. If you pretend that it is, that's what's going to bite you in the long run. Now you're reframing these relationships. To reframe relationships, you have to know what you expect it to look like. You have to know what it means to be a leader and what others can expect from you. You have to know where the dangers are, where you could, without realizing it, exhibit what looks like to others to be favoritism. Let me give you a classic example. We're having a meeting. You're the boss. You're at the front of the table. And you know that Melissa is always really quick to jump in, and she has great ideas, and you've been best friends for a lot of years in the workplace. And so when you have a meeting and Melissa jumps in to say something, you smile, you nod, you affirm her ideas, and then you move on. Because that's how it's always been. But you see, now the friendship is what people are thinking about. They're not thinking about this is how Melissa always is. They're thinking about Deb favors Melissa. She didn't even ask our opinion. So you might have to have a conversation with Melissa before these meetings and say, I love your ideas and I always want them. Help me out here to get ideas from other people too. Sometimes let's get their ideas first. I need to enlist you in making sure that all voices are in, because that's something we value around here. And what you'll be doing when you frame the relationships like that is that you will be accessing leadership, not just title and authority, not just management. You'll be leveraging leadership. Leadership is frankly all about relationships. You have the advantage of coming in to your role with relationships established. We don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. This is a tweak to the relationship. It is going from friendship to leadership. And that may seem like a mere formality to you, but it's not. It's what people want and need. And by the way, here's some good news. Leaders have a lot of friends. Really, really excellent leaders are surrounded by people who consider themselves to be supporters of and friends of the leader. You're going to get back there. It feels like a loss for now, and it is, but it's not a forever thing. In fact, you'll probably, over time, now that you're mentoring people and you're leading them and you're setting for expectations and you're fixing those things that you used to gripe about when you were a peer, about your former boss, you're fixing those things, and people will see that in you and they'll respond to it. Be sure that you're explaining why. Be sure that you're explaining how. Hey guys, we need to reframe our relationship. This is why, because we want to be a highly effective team. This team needs a solid manager, someone who can really make things happen within the team and advocate for the team and get resources for the team. I've got to show up as a leader, inside and outside the team. Here's how I need to do that. Here's what I need from you. Here's how you need to do things. Up front, just like if you were a brand new team of strangers, you'd be chartering your relationship. That's what needs to happen when you take this new role. Some tips for succeeding in that new role, and I might say this to any new manager, but I think it's especially important to mention it here because, well, it's harder. It is harder to be the manager of former peers than it is to come in as the new person who's going to manage the team. So I would say, although this is good advice for any manager, it's especially important when you got that extra challenge. Be sure that you're fair, that you're consistent. People are watching. Be sure that you do what you say you will do. You follow through on every promise and commitment that you make. And if you ever have to break a promise, you acknowledge that and you explain why. And you're going to distribute the power. You're going to involve people in decision-making and in determining how to do the work. You did it when you were peers. Why can't you do it now that you're the leader? Make sure you're bringing all voices, everybody's thoughts, a diversity of opinion into important discussions, and keep elevating. The team has common goals. The team works together to achieve some vision. Focus on that. Don't get caught up in the day-to-day, in the minutia of things, and on the things that could trip you up if, as a manager, you're thinking about authority and title too much. Now, I want to make a clarification. And that clarification is that you're still going to be friendly to people. You're going to be friendly. And you're going to encourage peers to continue having friendships with each other. That's important. It creates a sense of belonging and of job satisfaction. It's a big component piece of employee engagement and of higher retention rates. It's peer level friendships, though, that drive those benefits. You're going to have some boundaries. Your friendships are going to look a little different. You're going to get reset as boss and direct report before you go back into that friendship mode, before you start having evenings and weekends of anything together. And then it needs to, as often as possible, include the whole team, not select members of the team. Okay, you're not a peer anymore. So stop trying to be one. You have obligations to the organization now, to your boss, to your peers who are managers across other teams. It's not your job to be the primary defender of your friends. So those personal matters, you don't want those to be in the way clouding your judgment, because you're not a peer anymore. You've got to establish yourself as a manager, as a member of the management team, and you've got to develop some friendships up there at the very same time that you are friendly with and encouraging friendships among all of your direct reports. You can still be a mentor, you can be a coach, you can be a supporter in many, many other ways, but leave out the stuff that's usually associated with friendships. That means don't get caught up in gossip. Don't get caught up in too much that is beyond the scope of workplace necessities. Yes, certainly check in. How's the family? Heard your brother wasn't well. How's he doing? That's friendly. But let's get together on Saturday night with the gang and go out and pretend now on Monday morning that it never happened, that's where things get really difficult. So make the separations first, support people in other ways, and learn to navigate how you're going to show up as a manager and as a leader. So these are some really important ideas that will help you to do what I'm describing. And those of you who are in HR or are in managerial roles already and you're looking to support other people, I strongly encourage you to offer these sorts of touch points, these kinds of assistances to people just as quickly as possible. It will help them to understand what their role is as a manager. It'll help them understand what it looks like to be a good manager and leader, manager of work, leader of people. It will help them build connections at the managerial level. It'll help them to not keep doing what they've always been doing because they don't know any better. They don't know any different. In other words, give them experiences that help them see themselves as managers and leaders. Give them training on how to be an effective manager. That includes things like how to set expectations, how to give feedback, how to have those difficult conversations when someone is underperforming or exhibiting negative attitudes or violating company policy in some way. Teach them how to have those conversations. Help them to know how to be good change managers and how to resolve conflicts. In addition to all of that, you also want to equip them to think of themselves as leaders. I don't mean senior managers when I say leaders. I mean people who guide others. The word leader means to guide. People who guide others, people who can effectively show others the better way to get where they want to go, people who can ennoble and extract from other people all the best that they have to offer. They can unleash that potential within a team and help them understand the rationale for doing that it will improve employee engagement. Employee engagement, I have to unpack it because I think it often is misunderstood or underappreciated. Employee engagement is the emotional connection people have to the organization. And because they have that emotional connection, they apply additional discretionary effort. So employee engagement is two pieces: emotional connection, cause and effect, emotional connection that causes additional discretionary effort. Higher levels of employee engagement equal better retention, especially of those team members that you want to keep. Heightened productivity, output, quality, fewer absentees and tardies, fewer workers' comp claims. Right? By every metric, productivity increases when employee engagement levels increase, and customer satisfaction and loyalty rises. Profits are better, expenses are reduced, more money comes into organizations where there are higher levels of employee engagement. And the number one, no contest about this, the number one driver of employee engagement is leadership development, different from supervisory skills development. So help these managers, right? Give them a good, fair start by equipping them, helping them understand the importance of people building and of collaborating as a team of managers, not just in their silo, small team that they're managing. There's more to the job than that. Help them to know what it looks like and what your expectations are to elevate to the level of management, to not be the parents or protectors or truth hiders about the people that used to be their peers. It can be confusing. It can be really confusing if people don't understand the whys and the hows to do these things. And what they'll do, if not given alternatives, is they'll keep doing what they've always done, being a friend. And despite their very best of intentions and thinking that that's the right thing to do, it will hurt them. As managers, it will hurt their credibility, it'll hurt their performance, it'll hurt their future promotability, and it will be limiting to your organization too because of all those difficulties that they're experiencing. So don't do that to people. It's not fair. And if you are one of those people, remember this. These friends of yours, these former peers, you know them. And because you know them, you do have an advantage. It may not feel like an advantage given everything we've just been describing, but it is. And you don't have to leave the relationship intact exactly the way it was to still know people and be interested in people and leverage those stories and those connections that you've had in the past, right? You know them, you have trust, you have formed bonds with them. So when things are awkward, you have that foundation. You can talk about this openly and honestly, and you can work together. These are your friends. Your friends want to succeed and they want to see you succeed, just like you want to see them succeed at the same time that you're succeeding. You're in it together. And although your job status has been elevated, and you've got to be careful here not to favor people and not to have confusion in the relationship, at the very same time, you've got these bonds, and those bonds can be extremely strong in accomplishing whatever it is that you want to accomplish together, so long as that's what you focus on, your common goals. We really have to come back, though, to the landmines. Now, these are people who you might have thought were your friends, and they're about to prove you wrong. If you don't set the expectations clearly, this is what can happen. It happened to me. I had a very close friend the first time I became a manager, a very close friend who was vying for the same job. I got the job. She was friendly and supportive and enthusiastic for me for about a week. And then all the things that she would have done differently, the things that she thought I was not doing as well as she would have done them, that became a source of gossip and division in the team. And it also became her leverage, or what she thought would be her leverage with me, because she thought she'd be able to take advantage of our friendship. So she was using this in two ways. One, to gain favor from me and to get the things that she wanted. And then two, as things became a little more obvious that there was division, she began to try to set herself up as a go-between. She was causing the issues, but she set herself up with me as a go-between. If you will for me, then I will for you with the team. And it was non-sustainable. I felt betrayed. But this happens with people who forget. They forget that you have a friendship, and all they want to do is take advantage of that friendship. I hope none of the people on your team are doing anything like that to you, but please be aware that it can happen. I've seen it a lot of times. Your real friends, the ones who you are most interested in taking care of and supporting and seeing succeed, they're not going to do this to you. They're going to respect that you're the boss, so long as you show up as the boss and deserve respect. Okay? Your words do have more weight, so be careful. You may not be able to indulge in some of the same kinds of ribbing of people. It's just different when it's the boss who says something that's a little bit insulting. Might have been good-natured, might have been perfectly fine when you were peers. They might have given it just as good as they got it. But see, they can't anymore because you're the boss. You have positional power, and that means that nobody's going to feel comfortable ribbing you. So you have an unfair advantage. Maybe it's just better not to do it at all. Be aware that the people you are closest to, the others are going to feel like maybe you're favoring them, or could be getting to a place where you favor them. And if they feel that way, that can soon become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I just realized that I'm a few slides behind here. Let me catch up on screen. There we go. Don't withhold praise from people. But just make sure that you are being fair-minded. Make sure that you're deliberately looking out for praiseworthy activities from everyone. And if there were people who on your former team were always a little on the outside, they weren't quite in the clique, you're the boss now. It's your job to make sure that they get what they need from you, even though you weren't as close to them. You might have to work a little harder and push yourself to do it, but you should. And if you can, if you see openings, look for ways to help that individual feel more a part of the team too. They need friendships at work just the same as everyone else does. And even though it didn't happen naturally, maybe they were the newcomer, facilitate that where you can. Last but not least here, one more landmine. You're going to feel left out sometimes. When you walk into the break room or you come to the Zoom meeting a few minutes late and everybody clams up, it's because you're the boss. Everybody talks about the boss. Everybody has certain things that they say to each other, and they don't want to say it to the boss. Don't take offense. Yes, it's changed, but that's probably going to be one of the first signals that you should look for that you have done a good job of resetting the relationship. This is a good thing. It's healthy when they have some unity and they're working together and they're talking to each other and you're not a part of it. You don't need to participate in some of that gossip. You don't need to know what they think about everything that you said and did in the meeting. Let them have some of their own stuff that they get to bond around too. All right, I'm going to pause here for questions, comments, or thoughts. You can post those in the questions tab. Don't forget about all the attachments that I mentioned to you. And while the questions are getting posted, let me remind you that over on People First Leadership Academy, that's the URL that's on screen here right about now, peoplefirstpotential.com. There are 70 classes. There are a lot of classes available for SHRM recertification. There are classes for leadership development. There are 4 different versions of classes for managers, an entire series, and you can do it as e-learning. You can do it as open enrollment public workshops. You can bring it into your own organization and have it be customized. We offer that one in Spanish as well. So any of the tools that you want to provide to your team members, let's talk. Come to the academy, or remember, I gave you my email address earlier, and you've got my LinkedIn connection there in the attachments. Whatever way, shape, or form that we need to get in touch, let's do that. Let's make sure that we get your needs met. And as I don't see any questions here, let me make that just also an open invitation, whether you came in live or whether you came in on demand. Feel free to email me. I'd be happy to talk with you about the situations that you're experiencing and what you need to do to help people shift from being boss or buddy to now being boss. Do me a favor, as we wrap up here, don't forget when you leave to post a review for me. It helps me to know what you liked, helps me to know what you'd like to see done differently. And as you're on the channel, check out all of the new presentations. I've posted them for all of 2024, so be sure you get signed up for those too.